This is the 7-step prayer for those who know it. Creator, I am now willing you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out here to do your bidding. Amen. Yeah, so I'm an alcoholic. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I sponsor other men. My sobriety date is February 8th of 2020. So I have a little over a year. And yeah, I'm just going to follow the order in the book, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I also struggle with other substances and other issues, but I'm going to try to stay focused on alcohol this evening. But if you struggle with other substances and other issues, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Please reach out. Let's stay sober together. So I grew up in AA. When I was 10 years old, I knew the Serenity Prayer because my parents would take me to the meetings, and it's just this funny place that we went one night a week where my parents would talk about these crazy stories that I never quite understood, and I heard that from like people who I really respected too, and I was told, you can't ever say anything about this because it's like anonymous and secret, so it felt like this very weird club to me. And yeah, I took my first drink when I was 15 years old. One of my brother's friends brought over some of that New Amsterdam banana flavored vodka. And, he had 2 friends over, and that makes 3. And they decided they were going to have a drinking competition, right? And they needed 4 to round it out. So I was their 4th, and we did... I did 10 shots in 10 minutes. Our team did 20 shots in 10 minutes, and we lost, right? And so I immediately blacked out and woke up the next morning with one of these friends in my bed. And I immediately thought, that's exactly like the movies, right? Like that is the hangover. I am living the hangover. That's so fucking cool. I was so excited that I was finally becoming one of the cool kids. I thought I was stepping into the real world. And at first, it was that. It was really fun. And if I could go back to a place where it was just fun, then I surely would. If I could drink again tomorrow and be sure that it was just going to be fun like it was when I was 15, then, but I can't. And I know I can't because I've tried. So a couple years later, I was drinking with some of the same people, and we went up to this rope swing that goes over sort of a cliff edge in my town. And we were all heavily intoxicated. And we're like, yeah, let's get on this rope swing with a 100-foot drop underneath it. That seems like a really good idea. So I saw my friend do it, and he swung out and came back, and I was like, that's cool. I'm going to try it. And I swung out, and at the apex of the rope swing, I let go. And in the moment, I thought it was just a drunken mistake, right? But looking back on it, I think it was a thinly veiled suicide attempt. And I had attempted multiple times before that because I honestly just didn't want to be here anymore, And fortunately, I came out of that situation with just a nasty scrape. But that was sort of the beginning of the onset of problems. A couple years later, I go to college, and I soon find out that no one is nearly as good at drinking as I am, right? There is nobody else in my school that can drink the quantity or with the frequency that I do. There's maybe one guy who can keep up sometimes. But I, just like that first drinking experience, I thought drinking was a competition. I was winning. And I thought it was really nobody else could drink in the same way that I could, and I couldn't understand why. So I had more blackouts, more partying, right? Until it was July 4th of 2017, and we had this July 4th party, and I got blackout drunk, and I woke up the next morning, and nobody would talk to me. And I couldn't figure out why, because I didn't remember. And until that point, my drinking had been this funny for the things I had done last night. It was like, oh, I was so drunk, I don't remember any of that, But I did wasn't funny. Apparently, I had tried to physically move a passed out girl from room into my room, and I had to be restricted. Just horrible stuff, So, like any rational person, I got really angry and self-destructive and blamed them. And they kicked me out of the house, of course, because that's terrifying. Who the fuck does that? And I started living alone, and that's when it got really, really bad. Drinking every night, constantly contemplating suicide, wondering why I wasn't enough of a man to do it. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then for some reason, I really don't know why, but for some reason, I had this little voice in the back of my mind that was telling me, hey, there are some goals that you have in life that you're not going to be able to achieve if you're constantly drunk. Right. And so I was trying all these different methods, like it says in the book. I thought I was going to meditate, exercise, and read my drinking problem away. And sort of surreptitiously around that same time, my mom sent me this copy of Living Sober. And to this day, it is my favorite piece of AA literature. Don't at me. I love Living Sober. And it, there's on page 2 of this, it says it's about keeping an open mind, right? Perhaps some of the suggestions offered here will not appeal to you. If that is the case, we have found that instead of rejecting them forever, it's a better idea to just set them aside for the time being. And that was something I hadn't considered. I was very binary. I was like, I either take it wholesale or I'll never do it again. And so reading through this booklet gave me a lot of really interesting tips to try to maintain my sobriety. And it gave me a lot of jumping off points to figure out that like I might have a problem, because no matter how many of these tips I tried, I couldn't stay sober for any significant length of time. And then I remembered those funny rooms that, my parents used to take me to, right? And so I looked up AA in my college town, and I found it and went to my first meeting. And it was a weird meeting. It was like downtown Santa Cruz. There were like 4 people there, and 3 of them were homeless. And one guy who seemed to have a clean set of clothes on actively welcomed me into the room, because he was like, "Oh my God, that's a newcomer." And I thought I was a piece of shit, right? I thought that like, why would anybody ever care about me? I'm a garbage person. Look what I did to all these people. Look how I hurt them. Like, why? I just want to stay sober so that, maybe I can not die as soon as I think I'm going to, or kill myself, right? And it was amazing the love that this person showed for me. And so then I found like an on-campus young people's group and started doing the deal. And like, that was in, April of 2019 or early 2019, something like that. And then I got in a bicycle accident and broke my collarbone, and it required surgery, and I had to drop out of school. And, these are all just like a lot of excuses for why I relapsed, right? I did a lot of, they gave me, I told them when they put me into the ambulance, I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. Do not give me any of the good stuff, right? Like, please just, take me to the hospital. I will endure the pain. And eventually at the hospital, they talked me into just 2 of the opioid painkillers, and that turned into a full bottle. And then that into, I was staying honest with it. I was trying to, tell my sponsor every time I was taking one and take it exactly as medically indicated. But eventually I decided that it would be no different if I snorted one than if I, took one by mouth, which in reality is just me trying to get high again, right? Which is a relapse. And I stayed out for a couple of months. And, I graduated from school and I moved back home, and I have my, 4-year degree in economics, and I started working at a grocery store making sandwiches for $11 an hour. And yeah, my mom was like, "Hey, do you want to go on this vacation with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I love flying. Sure, let's do it." And she's like, "Okay, the deal is you can't drink though." And I'm like, "What? Like, come on, like free vacation, but I can't drink." Um, so like, fine, whatever. I'm probably still gonna drink while I'm there, but sure. And so we spent 8 days in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, at this amazing conference type thing called Sober Vacations International. Look them up if you get a chance. It's really cool. They rent out a whole hotel and strip it of booze, and there's meetings all day, which is probably like the most privileged recovery story that there ever is, right? I spent 8 days in Mexico with a whole hotel dedicated to sobriety. But I came back and it stuck. I have some really fascinating journals from that time. And life right away started getting really, really good. While I was on that vacation, I got a call from work to tell me I got a promotion, and then very shortly after, I got a second promotion. And I went from making sandwiches in the deli to doing, full charge bookkeeping and accounting for a 40-person team. I sunk myself into my work, and I was going to meetings every day, and I was, staying sober, but I wasn't really working any steps. I was still hanging out on that pink cloud, I think, which eventually fades, right? It always does. And so as things started to suck, I started reaching out again because I knew that's what I needed to do. I had worked the steps before, but I was feeling kind of lazy. And so I reached out to someone in my local area who was very, very kind and, patient with me and listened to my blabbering on about my grand ideas about what my life was going to be now that I'm sober. And he took me through the steps. And 1, 2, and 3 were pretty much, I was ready. That was easy. We did those all in one day, just, sitting in a park reading the book together. And then 4 was a more contemplative experience, because my first time through 4, I really rushed it. And I really took my time this time to actually sit down and think about what am I truly resentful at? What are my fears? Who have I harmed? And then, the 5th step is uncomfortable as hell. 6 and 7, I still have character defects that I like, and so I need to say that prayer that I shared with, that we all know, the 7th step prayer more often, because I love being sarcastic, and flippant and abrasive. Those are things that I find really funny. But they stand in the way of my usefulness to God and to my fellows. 8 and 9 were the hardest things I have ever done. Not so much writing the list, but actually reaching out to these people and owning up to what I had done. Every time I would drink, I would think it was a good idea right up until, the moment I drank, and then I'd be high for a while and then feel like shit, until I got my next drink. When I did my 9th step, it was exactly the opposite. I felt like garbage the whole time leading up into each amends, and then we would chat for, 10 minutes to an hour. And then I would feel just amazing. So if you want some of the best drugs you can get in recovery is the 9th step. Yeah. And then the 10th step, continuing to take a personal inventory. That's coming easier to me. I just need to shut the hell up sometimes. Save myself before I start talking bad about other people, and removing myself from situations where there's whatever. And then the 11th step and 12th step, the 11th step is where I really find the root of my recovery, that daily practice, the daily reprieve. I'm a really strong believer in meditation and prayer. And that's something that I wasn't, I was practicing when I was using, but I wasn't really okay with myself, and so when I was drinking and using, I spent a lot of time meditating when I was really just, planning and thinking and trying to get on to whatever my next thing was. And in recovery, in sobriety, I'm finding this this center to myself, and this reality of who I am and what I feel. That is, it's weird, right? It's like I spent all these years actively suppressing that, right? I don't want to feel that. I don't want to think that. And so just listening to my own thoughts and my own feelings is odd, and I need that daily meditation practice to get in touch with that and to really listen. And then practicing these principles in all my affairs, I'm still not perfect with that. But at the very least, I have this internal sort of alarm that tells me when I'm going off track. It'll sort of warn me when, like, hey, that might not be terribly honest of you. Like the other day, I was doing my laundry, and I found this prepaid Visa gift card in the laundry room, and I used it to load up my laundry card and then threw it away. And right away, I'm like getting these alarm bells ringing in my head. So my solution to that was to just be really honest about it. Things like that. It's easy for me to keep them inside. I find it much easier to not talk about stuff than it is to talk about stuff, which is why I was sort of nervous about sharing tonight, because I'd much rather just sit and listen. But gotta say it sometime, right? Yeah. So practicing the principles in all their affairs, and then carrying the message to others. I don't know if I'm terribly good at carrying the message. I'm still on this weird borderline between anonymity and helping people who I know. I want to recommend to people that they go to AA and just check us out, because I hear people talking about things that I used to struggle with regards to booze. And but it's attraction, not promotion, right? But working with other alcoholics in these rooms is especially helpful for me, because it reminds me of where I was at, just one short year ago, right? And it strengthens my program, because anytime I have the opportunity to read the book with another recovering alcoholic, I get to work those steps again. And that's something that at first sort of once I finished the 12th step, or you never really finished the 12th step, but once I went through the 12 steps, the first time I'm like, great, I'm done. We're done. We're sober for the rest of our lives. Good, and I'm still really resistant to doing the work, because it's hard. It's challenging stuff. And most of the time I don't want to do it. But I know that I need to if I want to stay sober. And that is, this life that I have now is so incredible that I do anything that I can to keep it. And the only thing that's worked for me is these 12 steps. So that is my pitch. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Glenn and Sam, for stepping up tonight out of nowhere. You two rock. And yeah, I'm excited to hear from all of you. Thank you.